I'm a huge Madness fan, by the way.
Thank you.
It's downright my favorite like roundtable discussion series ever. Like ever. I love it so much. And like you have like so much like motion stuff in there or whatnot. Like what's what's the process like editing something like that where you're dealing with so many different camera perspectives and you have to add like sound effects? How do you even visualize in your head like the outcome of what how it's gonna look? Like is that
Yeah,
something that just feels so natural to you at this point, or do you have kind of like a process or of figuring it out?
a lot of it was doing it for so long that it felt natural.
Right.
With Madness, well, we had an amazing crew helping us film that stuff.
Right.
We filmed some in Seattle, but the lion's share of it was filmed at the that one video gamer office in L.A.
Sure.
And Gerard's crew is just amazing.
Sure.
Um, but when they were setting up, they would always like double check with me, like, is this the perspective you want? So like I already had an idea of how the camera shots would look.
Sure.
Um, and honestly, a lot of that came from like, excuse me, a lot of that just came from going with the flow of a conversation. I just hit the mic. Sorry about that.
It's fine. It's totally fine.
Going with the, a lot of it's going with the flow of a conversation and cutting on like that beat just seemed, it feels right to cut here.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
that person has a good reaction to what they're saying here. I should, put that in.
Embrace that. Of
Yeah.
course. And would you say that like so for all intensive purposes you were kind of like the director of that whole project? Like was that kind of your project in a sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say
Okay.
so.
And would you say that was like one of your more ambitious projects?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely
Okay.
was. It had a very different vision for what it was versus how it turned out. Like,
Do you have some behind the scenes
yeah,
visions? Are we about to see
like,
another alternate form of Madness?
well, we had like the original idea came from that was a thing my friends and I did in high school. Like, we
Okay.
would have like a giant list of like what are the best cartoons. We should like do a
Right.
tournament about this and a discussion
Right.
thing. And I was talking to Shane Gill, who one of the Normal Boots guys, he runs Did You Know Gaming,
Sure.
about this years later, and we were like, "Oh, we should do this as a show. That'd be fun." And we were really inspired by this. I think it's a Rooster Teeth show called Million Dollars Butt, where they have three people on a panel. It's not really a panel, so to speak,
Right.
where all three of them come up with a you get $1 million, but you have to live with this.
Right.
Like,
Okay. Gotcha.
but the way they did the production of that show, like the camera angles, I was like, that's like what I'd want to do with Madness.
Interesting. So you were inspired by the formal qualities of that show, and you're like,
Yeah,
how can we implement that here? That's very
yeah.
interesting.
And just as a general note, like I want to put out there into the ether, like we should have been. Let me rephrase that. I should have been more communicative with the Normal Boots audience as to, like, if you go and look at Madness, the format's weird. Like the tournament bracket format is weird. It was like the first round was all 1v1s.
Sure.
Then the second round was
Semifinals is like
a three for all is what we
Yeah.
called it.
Battle Royale.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That we did that because it was not realistic to expect that to be two rounds, right? Like
Sure.
it wouldn't be realistic to film. It would have
Mhm.
added another day to the filming schedule.
It probably would have been hard to discuss too, to have like that much more time to discuss about these games. Like
Yeah.
how many times can you make new points, you know?
By that final round, we always got like we were running pretty thin
Yeah, yeah.
on stuff to talk about.
Sure.
But like I and when we had guests, the guests who were so gracious to give us basically 3 days of their time,
Hmm.
those shoots were all day, like
Right. I
at
can only
a
imagine,
minimum,
like,
6 hours, because every episode's like 30 minutes. Every
right.
episode that we released was like 25 minutes, and that's because I cut
Yeah.
out like 5 minutes of dead air,
And that doesn't even include all the time in between like recording. So
Yep.
it's never just start and stop. There's
Yeah.
always something in between.
so easily that would be 6-7 hours all
Right.
day shooting. It's exhausting.
Definitely.
we felt like we, in good conscience, could not ask people to give another day of their time when they're already being so gracious.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And yeah, I should have been more communicative with the Norwood's audience about like that weird format. And when people commented and suggested, why don't you do the regular formatted? But hey,
it's hard. To be fair, honestly, like that's part of the reason I love the show though, was because it's so much its own thing. Hey there, you just watched a clip from my creative podcast. If you'd like to check out the full episode, you can support me over on Patreon, and if not, you can subscribe to check out more clips coming here soon.